So over the last 2 weeks, I've been rewatching the entirety of the Dark Knight trilogy, and now that I have rewatched the entirety of the Dark Knight trilogy, is the perfect time to rank the trilogy. So the Dark Knight trilogy is for a lot of people considered to be one of the greatest trilogies of all time. For my money, it's probably the greatest comic book movie trilogy of all time, and some people will probably even just say it is the greatest trilogy of all time. So there's so many great movies within here. So with all that said, let me know what your favorite of the Dark Knight trilogy is in the comment section down below. Let me know why it is your favorite in the comment section down below. But with all that said, let's go on to give my third favorite movie in the Dark Knight trilogy. And again, this is my third favorite because I enjoy all these movies. None of these are bad, so this is just going from a movie that I like to a movie that I really, really like. There's no like worst to best because these three are all great movies. And coming in third place, I do have The Dark Knight Rises. I actually got to see this on the big screen on Friday for the very first time on the big screen. So this is the only one out of the entire trilogy that I've actually been able to see on the big screen. And this movie, with probably all of them, warrant definitely seeing on the big screen. Seeing on the big screen, I thought was incredible. And the reason it is because the actual cinematography, but not only for this one, all three of them, the cinematography for these movies are beautiful. And this movie in particular is such an epic movie. It's by far the most epic of all of the movies because it's such a big grand scheme. It's such a big battle. Like, it takes up the majority of Gotham and it's moving around from place to place. There's massive action set scenes like at the start with the plane. So much is happening in this movie, which is one of the downsides of this movie, is the fact that so much is happening. There's just like, there's so many different plot lines and there's so much that doesn't really work. Like the whole kind of Wayne Enterprises and Bruce Wayne become bankrupt, all that storyline, I don't really find that to be that interesting. Now it does kind of go into the plot, but I don't really find it to be that intriguing. But the villains we've got in this movie, we got, of course, Tom Hardy playing Bane, who just plays Bane phenomenally. He's Bane. He doesn't even look like, as I was watching it, I was thinking, I know that is Tom Hardy, but he does not look like Tom Hardy. He just looks so different. And then you see him without the mask. And there's some scenes in particular, especially a scene in general, when he looks sad. I'm like, okay, that is 100% Tom Hardy. But just throughout this movie, I just couldn't see Tom Hardy. I was looking at him, he just played him such a phenomenal job. As well, you do have Talia al Ghul, who plays she's actually the main villain in this movie that we don't actually know till the end. I thought that twist works really well. Even though I knew it was coming, I still think the twist does work really well, because the first viewing I had no idea, but later on you kind of do, because you know it, you see it coming a lot even more. But the fact that she is Ra's al Ghul's daughter, I think that ties it into Batman Begins really, really well, to kind of finish off the movie with a nice bookend. So it starts with him and it finishes with his daughter. I think just kind of works really well, and something I never thought they would bring back in this trilogy. I never thought they'd bring loads of stuff back from the Batman Begins and have it play out the way it is. We also got the Scarecrow cameo in this movie that works really, really well. And the scene in particular that actually kind of almost got me to tears was the scene at the end when, I'm not going to spoil it in case you haven't seen the movie, but I kind of already spoiled the twist in the movie, but when Michael Caine is crying at the end of the movie saying like, I'm sorry, that almost brought me to tears, just for how emotional and all the emotion that was on screen. I was shocked at how well that scene played out as well. We've also got Selena Kyle being played by Anne Hathaway, and a lot of people don't like Anne Hathaway for some reason. I don't understand the hatred for her, but also don't enjoy her Catwoman. But again, I don't understand that. I actually really like her Catwoman. Of course, we've had other iterations, but I think she is probably, no, I wouldn't say she's the best Catwoman, but I think she does a really, really good Catwoman, and I'm actually kind of glad that they did get her, because I think she is a really good actress, and I don't understand a lot of the hate she does get. But other than that, you got Christian Bale, of course, he's great in it. You do have Michael Caine, you've got Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who I think does a phenomenal job in this movie, playing our kind of somewhat of a Robin. I think he's good as well. And then you also have Jim Gordon, who, he's not the best in this movie, as in he's better in the other movie. He's still good in this movie, but he's just not as strong as he was in the other two movies. And then the ending to this movie, it caps off not only this movie phenomenally well, and it just ends the movie at such a high note that you want to see more in a way, but also you think the movie ends in such a perfect way that you don't need to see more, and that also just kind of finishes off the trilogy in such a fantastic way. The way it ends, it leaves you satisfied. You're glad you watched it. You're actually really glad you watched it, but you're also glad that the movie ended here, because it ends at such a happy place and it just ends really well, opposed to our other Batmans where you got Ben Affleck, we don't know what happens to him. You got Michael Keaton, which we're probably going to find out what happens next to him. But all these ones that kind of left open-ended, that they continue doing their Batman stuff. With Christian Bale, we see his ending, and I just think it works really well, the fact that we do get to see the ending to his character. And coming in number 2, I do have Batman Begins. This movie, I think it's slightly better than The Dark Knight Rises. I think it's such a good movie. Same with The Dark Knight Rises. But what I enjoy most about this is the origin story aspect. Seeing Batman actually becoming Batman, going out there, testing his abilities, seeing what he can and can't do, actually training with the League of Shadows. That entire sequence, I think, is really enjoyable to see the League of Shadows, see the destruction of the League of Shadows, all of it works really, really well for me. As well, you do have the villain of the Scarecrow, who I think is such an underrated villain. He does not get talked about enough within this trilogy. If someone talks about the Dark Knight trilogy, they go first Joker, they go Bane, they even go talk about Two-Face, but I think the Scarecrow does not get enough credit, and people don't talk about him enough. He warrants people to talk about him a lot more, but for some reason, he's not really one of those noticeable and really standout villains as well. You do have Liam Neeson also playing, what's his name, Ra's al Ghul. You do have him in there playing Ra's al Ghul, and he does kind of overshadow the Scarecrow a bit more just because it is Liam Neeson. Of course, he's going to overshadow him. So the fact that he also doesn't really help the Scarecrow's case. But I think he is a really good, really creepy ass villain, and he does play him really, really well as well. He's the one that does continue on throughout this entire trilogy, and it kind of works out well in that way. Unfortunately, Heath Ledger did die, so we didn't get to see him in The Dark Knight Rises, which was the plan originally, which would have been cool to see him continue on, but of course, tragically, he died. But one of the other great things about this I enjoy is the backstory to Bruce Wayne. Getting to see more of him before he puts on the cape, before he becomes Batman, all of that. You get to see a bit more of the parents, you do get to see a bit more of the relationship between him and Rachel, who, the Rachel character in the next movie, I think she's a lot better. I don't think Katie Holmes does a really good job. All these actors like Christian Bale, Michael Caine, all these people, they're great actors. They're like A+ actors. And I just think Katie Holmes she's not really on the same level as them, so she falls behind a good bit. So every time she's in a scene with one of our big actors, it just kind of seems like she's trying to catch up with them, but she's just nowhere near, so it kind of falls flat a bit. So I don't know what happened there. I don't know if they recasted her because of this, or she didn't want to return. But whatever happened, I think it was a good move not really having her return, because I don't think she is the strongest character or the strongest actress to be in this trilogy, because she's not really the best. But then, of course, you do have the casting of Christian Bale, who I think is arguably the best Batman. I go between him, Ben Affleck all the time, because I actually really love Ben Affleck as Batman. But then again, Christian Bale is such a great Batman. After watching this trilogy, I'm thinking, oh yeah, he's probably the best. I'll probably watch Batman vs Superman and back, yeah, no, he's the best. But the discussion really is there for who was the best out of these two. If you're born in the 90s and 80s, of course, you're probably going to say Michael Keaton. But for me, these two are neck and neck, who I cannot decide who is the better Batman. And coming in first place, of course, everyone probably predicted it as soon as I started talking. It's The Dark Knight. How can anyone not have this as number one? Because this is one of the greatest comic book movies of all time. It is just arguably one of the greatest movies of all time, because it's just such a phenomenal movie. It's probably my favourite of Christopher Nolan's movies, which is a hard thing to put, because majority of his movies, like the top 5, are arguably one of his best movies. That shows how good of a director he is. But I just have to put this ahead of them all, because it's a phenomenal movie. Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker is literally Oscar winning. He does a phenomenal job, and watching him in other movies to see what he does in this movie is such a character change. Like, the only other thing I've seen him in is 10 Things I Hate About You. So if you watch that and then The Dark Knight, it's like, what the hell happened to this guy? Of course, he did tragically die, and I would love to see him come back, as many other people would have, for The Dark Knight Rises, but of course he wasn't able to. But the fact that he's a man who says he doesn't have a plan, but he clearly has a plan, and the destruction he goes about doing, him against Batman, he works so well off Batman. Like, the interrogation scene within that cell is probably the best scene in the entire movie, when he smacks his head against the table and he goes, you know what, you really shouldn't go for the head first, because then they get all dizzy and confused. And it's a great scene. Also, you do have Two-Face in this movie, who I think is, again, he, like the Scarecrow, he doesn't get really talked about enough. Of course, you do have Joker, you have Bane, but Two-Face, again, does not get talked about nearly enough. And the special effects on his face is just, it's disgusting. As I was watching, I was looking at his face, I'm like, that just looks horrible. He looks like he should be in agonizing pain, and it just works really well. The special effects, of course, it does look better than Tommy Lee Jones, his special effects, but just Two-Face in general in this movie, I really loved his character. Of course, there was no way he was going to survive. No one could really survive, especially in this world that Christopher Nolan was making, that it could be a lifelike world. No one's going to survive with half their face burnt off. But the way he looks, the way he acts, everything he goes about, I just think works really well. And again, Christian Bale as Batman, this is probably his best performance in the entire trilogy. It works really, really well, and it's such a great story. The story as well, the opening scene with the bank robbery, all of it plays really well. I keep saying it really well because this is the best. This is probably my favorite DC movie, arguably. This or maybe Superman the movie. Actually, no, The Dark Knight. I gotta go for The Dark Knight. This is the best DC movie, and the ending of the way the movie ends with the death of Harvey Dent, as well as the kind of Batman going out on the run that he is now the guy who did all these murders. He's getting blamed for them, and he goes off in the night, and the movie ends, leaving you to go, well, what happened next? And the movie in general, it's a phenomenal movie. If you haven't seen The Dark Knight for whatever reason, watch The Dark Knight. So that's my ranking of the entire Dark Knight trilogy. Let me know in the comment section down below what your favorite Dark Knight movie is in the comment section down below. Just click the subscribe button so you can see more DC and Marvel content from me in the future. Every Friday I've been dropping another review in my Road to Marvel's Black Widow series. This week will be the Avengers, so if you want to see my review of the Avengers, click that subscribe button so you can come back on Friday when I do that. But as always, thanks for watching.